Welcome everyone to the fourth session of Chogging, which is chess plus jogging. And today we are back after a weekend break, and we have the position of a study by Kolesnikov. It's white to play and draw here, and I don't know the answer. As always, I'm going to share my analysis with you. We have one viewer today, Mr. Red, and hi Mr. Red. So let's start off with this position. It's white to play and draw, and the first move to me looked pretty obvious, that I had to play king f7. Now if I went to e7, then already king e6 is losing for white. So therefore I started with king f7, and here the first natural variation to look at is h5, because you want to queen the pawn. E7, h4, e8 queen, and it looks as if black is pretty quick, but we have the c pawn which actually queens with a check. So even though it didn't queen with a check, it wouldn't have made a difference, but here it's a check, and it's just a draw. So going back to the position over here, we find that the move h5 is not going to be so good. And once that doesn't work, I think the next natural move to consider was king e5. Getting the king over here, because I'm going to sacrifice my rook for the e pawn, so my king can go, black's king can go and try to stop these two pawns over here. Now that's at least what I thought, but after e7, king d5, e8 queen, rook takes, king takes. This is already a winning position for black, I think. Yeah. So, but we have an intermediate move here, a6, and after a6, if you take the pawn, then it's already very bad, because a7, rook a8, queens, and this is already winning for white. And if you so you cannot take the c5 pawn, you go king c6, but already I think this is losing for black, because after king e8, h5, a7, king d7, c6, the c pawn is just too quick, and you are unable to stop it. So I came to the conclusion that the natural moves are not working here. I tried to play king to f7. I mean, the natural move that I tried here was bringing the king here. I also tried pushing my pawn. Nothing really seems to work. And that's when I think after around 15 minutes of thought, the idea struck me that I have to get my rook to h8. And this, I think, is the key move in this position for black in order to fight for the full point. Now, of course, king g7 doesn't work because of rook e8. This is just losing. And I don't see any other option, because the check is threatened over here and the pawn is going to be lost on e6. So e7 looked like the only move. And then came rook h7 check. And now this check, where does the king go? There were two options, of course, king f8 and king e8. And this is where I had to make the decision. I think I could easily discount king e8, because after king e6, c6, rook takes e7, king d8, king d6. It's already, the pawns are completely under control, and this is what I thought. I mean, it looks completely winning for black. So king e8 was not working, so king f8 is the correct move. And here I had to play king f6, so that if he makes a queen over here, then I already have a mate. And when I started the position today, I was so happy that I had selected a study where there was no knight. Knights are really tricky when you are going blindfold, you're running and the knight can move in different directions. It's always very tricky. So I was happy that today there's just rooks and pawns, but well, under promotion, you get the knight on the board. And I think king e6 again looked like a forced move, because now, for example, c6 doesn't work because of check and you lose the knight. So the next move which I was thinking was knight g7 check, and now black has a few options. For example, I could go king d7, king g8 traps the rook already, so I have to sacrifice. And it seems like black pawn is going to queen, but these two white pawns are quite quick. a6, king c7, king f7 or king f6, h4, a7, king b7, c6 takes, king e7. And once again, this will end in a draw. So far so good. This looked like a draw to me over here, and so I cannot really sacrifice my rook here. I mean, I had to sacrifice the rook, but I can't go king d7. So that's when I started to think, does king d5 make a difference? But not really. After takes, I have to save the h pawn, and after a6, king c6, we are going to end up in a similar position. So, well, it stood that I was unable to find anything really concrete for black after knight g7 check, to try to win this position. And king f6 looked like another try, not going that side. But after knight e8 check, king g6, this is what I was thinking, and c6, just pushing the pawn, rook to a7, because if I start pushing h5, then c7 takes, knight takes, and it's already winning for white after a6. So rook went to a7 here, and c7, rook a8, king e7, h5, king d7, h4, c8 queens, rook takes, king takes, h3, a6, h2, a7, queen. And this position is something which I have to assess here, what's going on. And I have to say that I'm not really sure, because after a move like knight c7, I think this is a draw. There is no way to stop me from queening, and this is what I think could be the critical line. And because the black king is too far, there is just no way to really make progress here. And so I was thinking for some time here, and this is when I got completely exhausted. My stamina was over, and I said, let's call it a day. So this is what I have thought, and now I think we should go back to the start position and try to see what John Nunn gives in his book, Endgame Analysis, and try to see how much of the analysis was correct. Well, let's hope that I was not completely wrong in this position. Okay. White's three isolated pawns don't look like an especially impressive force, this is what John Nunn writes, to counter black's rook and passed h-pawn. Indeed, white has to work hard to create any real counterplay. So first move is king f7. This is an exclamation move, but I think pretty simple. And then John gives rook h8 check, exclamation mark. This is by far the best move, preparing a check on h7. So that's good news that at least was able to find this move. Now after rook h8 was played, the next move was e7, once again only move. And black continued now with rook h7, king f8, king f6. So until now everything is going quite well. e8 knight. That's again an obvious under promotion. And black continued here with the next move. I think is one which I had considered and I didn't say before while I was trying to show you the solution, but I didn't think it really made a difference. And the move which I thought was king e5. No, what I had seen in my calculation was after king e6, knight g7, king e5. But the right move is directly king e5, and that's the move which is very interesting. And it's the right move. The point is that if you play king e6, let's just see if the analysis is right. Knight g7 check traps the rook, and yeah, this is correct. What we saw: knight g7, king d5 or king d7, and then king g8 traps the rook, and we know what's going to happen next. And one more variation which is considered is king to g6 over here, and after c6, rook a7, c7, rook a8, king e7, h5. This is the, I think, the variation which we considered in the end. But the quicker way is knight f6 to draw the game. Knight f6, h4, knight g4, stopping the pawn. So king g5 and king d7. It's a draw because I guess you take queen, take h3, a6, h2, a7, queen, and king b8. So that's a draw. So going back over here, king e5 is the best move in the position. Let's try to see why. Well, c6 is of course now the correct move. One more variation is knight g7. If you try to trap the rook is no longer going to be trapped now, because after h5, a6, h4, a7, you have rook h8 check, king f7, and the pawns are going to be stopped over there, and after rook a8, black wins the game. So pretty interesting. So the question to you guys here now is, if king e5 is the right move, what really happens after c6? So let's see if you can come up with the best move for black in this position. What exactly is he going to do against the threat of c7, c8 queen? I mean, if you can't really sacrifice the rook, because if you do that, then it's just a draw. So how do you continue this position? I mean, you would lose. So it's black who has to try and get something out of this. And how would you continue the play? So this position is not really very simple. I mean, rook a7 can be a possibility, but well, it leads to the same variation that we just saw. After c7, rook a8, king e7, h5, And once again, you try to bring your knight f6, h4, knight g4. It's the same position, yeah. King f4, knight h2, and king g3, king d7, king h2, queens, and a draw. So the best way for black to continue playing, if anyone can find the answer over here. We have a few viewers here. We have Gavi and we have Mr. Red. What should black be doing here in this position? Okay, well, I think that as per the book, rook h8 check is the best move, and after king e7 here, you must take the knight. Rook takes e8, and after king takes e8, this is getting quite interesting. Gavi suggests here the move king e6 in this position. Well, if here king e6, well, this won't really work because of c7, but I guess you are saying in the other position over here, king e6. But I think after king e6, knight g7 check is the problem, right? Because king d6, king g8 is sort of trapping the rook. But maybe it's not. Now that the pawn is pushed on c6, maybe it's different, because after you take h5, this might already be winning for black. So, yeah, but king e6 here, because you're threatening surely this check, so it's a possibility. But maybe, yeah, this looks interesting. How about c7 in this position? Then you give a check and you of course win the knight. And king g8 might be possible, but once again I guess rook e7 is pretty strong. So I think I have to consider knight g7 check, king d6. C7 can be an option here, but then king takes c7. Okay, king g8, rook takes g7, king takes g7, h5. Okay, what's happening here? Yeah, this looks like winning for black, surely, because I'm just going to take these pawns over here and it's going to be game over. So king e6 is definitely a very interesting move suggested by Gavi, but in the game he suggests, John Nunn says rook h8, that's the main study, king e7, and you take on e8, king e8, and after king takes e8, if you take that, then king d6 is just winning for black, because he's going to take away all the pawns and finish the game. So the right move here is king to d7 after rook e8. So that's a very impressive move. You don't take the rook, but you're going to queen the c pawn. So that would be worthy of 2 exclamations. This move, king d7, king d5, c7. Now just pushing the pawn, and well, now I'm really threatening to take your rook, so you go back to h8, queen rook takes, king c6, king b8, king d5, and now we come to a position which is a very famous study actually in the pawn endgame. The king is outside the zone of the pawn, the white king. If you make this square here, sorry, then the white king is outside the zone, but he comes in with a tempo, king b7, threatening a6, and after you take, he's back and he stops the pawn. So, well, it was a very tricky study. I mean, if we just go back to the start of the position and quickly see what we just looked at in this study, it was here. So according to me, the first move was completely clear, king f7. You want to push the pawn, and the tricky defense, rook h8, had to be found for black. I mean, it's not a defense, but the best try to play for a win. E7 is once again forced, check, king f8, and king f6, you under promote. So this all is pretty clear, but king e5, this was the exclamation move, and after c6, I think this is the position where one of the viewers suggests something very interesting, king e6, Gavi suggested here, and I think this is very interesting move because rook h8 check is the other option which ends in a draw, but after king e6, let's just try to see if there is something, because it's not really given in the book according to me. He doesn't consider the move king e6 over here. Let's try to find out. You go king d6. I think now you can't really play king g8, so you have to give a check, king into c6, and king g8. Yeah, I think this would lose the h6 pawn. So after something like rook d7, knight h6, this will end in a draw. So king e6 was a try, but once again it's a draw. So rook h8 check, this is the key move, and after king e7, rook e8. Black is trying his best, but white comes out one step ahead, and after king d7, an excellent move, it's a draw. King d5, c7, rook h8, queens. One more suggestion here by Gavi. He says, just a second, after king d6, over here, king e6, knight g7, king d6, he suggests that knight h5 for white. Yeah, it's possible, but I think much more clearer is just knight f5 check, and you play king g8 and win the h6 pawn. So that would be a clear draw. So knight g7, king d6, so here rook h8 check is the move, king e7, you take on e8, king d7. And what I like very much is how these tricky positions end up in known theoretical pawn endgames, which many of you might have seen before. King c6 and now king b8. Good move. King b5 and king b7. Again, coming inside the square with a tempo, and after king takes a5, king c6, it's a draw. So a very nice study by who's the author, Kolesnikov. He composed it in 1993, and it was a very tricky one. I was trying to solve it while running. That's jogging for you. You solve a chess study and you jog at the same time, and it helps you to increase your stamina as well as think blindfold, calculate the variations when you are running. And yes, Gavi says that he knew this pawn endgame. I'm sure many of you knew this endgame position, but the trick was to calculate right from the start. So all the best for solving many more studies, and I will see you tomorrow with the 5th session of Chogging. Have a good day. Bye.